So I'll begin with the Islamic greeting, Assalamu alaikum, which simply means peace be upon you. This is a new series I'm thinking of starting called Arguments for God. And in it, I'm basically just going to go over the philosophical and scientific arguments which prove the existence of God. And the one we're going to be going over today is known as the fine-tuning argument. Now, the fine-tuning argument is a subset of the teleological argument, which is just a number of arguments which prove the existence of God. So we're going to go over this one today. Now, just a few announcements before we start. Number one, we're collecting donations this time. So if you guys have any money and you guys want to donate, please consider donating. I'll have the box ready in a sec. But all of these snacks that you guys are eating, that's all coming out of our pockets. So if you guys want to help support future events, please consider donating some cash. So just think about it. Number two, we're going to have a sign-up sheet. So you guys will have to sign up on your way out. So just keep that in mind. Number three, we have an Instagram, and if you guys want to be up to date on these events, follow our Instagram at upa.msa. And finally, these presentations take a long time to set up, and Ms. Rodriguez has been very patient with me, and she's sacrificing her lunchtime to let us be here, so I just want to give her a big round of applause. Thank you, Ms. Rodriguez. Please make sure to thank her on your way out. Okay, now without further ado, let's get into it. Now, before we get started, I want to set up a few guidelines. Number one, please keep your questions till the end because we have a lot of material to cover. So if you have any questions, this can be very interesting. Just either jot it down or keep it in the back of your head. Number two, this presentation is going to be dealing with atheism versus theism. So basically, analyzing the atheistic worldview and seeing if the theistic worldview explains reality better. So we're not going to deal with polytheism or Trinitarianism or any of these other isms right now. Right now, just get into the mindset of atheist versus theist. Guys, could you change the slides as well? No, like just sit there. Yeah. Okay. Oh, not yet. And number three, for the sake of this discussion, we're going to assume that the universe is a random generation. Because this is what some atheists like to say. The universe is a random generation. So we're not going to worry about what caused it to happen, what the universe depends on. We don't care about any of that. We're just going to say, for the sake of this discussion, that the universe is a random generation. Okay? All right, next. Now, before we get started, I want to do a quick social experiment. So I downloaded a program which basically prints out a random number between 1 and a million. Okay? So this program is going to print out a random number between 1 and a million. So let's run this and see what happens. Okay, down here. Okay, so we got this number. A random number between 1 and a million. Now, some of you guys are probably thinking like, there's something going on, but just calm down. There is a chance that we could have gotten this number. So let's run it again and see what happens. Wow, we got the same number twice. Now, I'm sure you guys are thinking, this program has to be rigged, right? But there still is a small chance that we could have gotten this number twice. So let's run it again and see what happens. Okay, now I think every single one of you is like, okay, there's something going on. Raise your hand if you think something fishy is going on here. Right, something is not as it seems. Okay, you guys are right. There is a giant fish in the program, so there's something fishy going on. Anyway, this is why I dropped out of art. But the point is, I also have this over here, fish. So the point is, can someone tell me why they thought something was off? Why did you guys think that, something wasn't right about this?
Because the sheer chance of getting a 1 in a million numbers 3 times.
Oh my God, though.
Incredibly small.
That's right. Did you guys hear what he said? He said the chance of us getting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 3 times in a row, if we're generating a random number, is so small that we just had to conclude that there was something wrong. And a lot of you guys also would agree with him. So what that tells me is that you guys are very sensible and you guys use your logic when it comes to these things. So congratulations, you guys have a brain, okay? Now, our universe is composed of a number of constants and quantities, some of which are on your screen. Now, each of these constants has been carefully calibrated into a life-permitting range. What does that mean? If any of these values, if any of these values were even a little bit different, right? Even by a hair, no interactive life of any kind would exist in our universe. There would be no stars, no life, no planets, and no chemistry. So when we look at the universe, we see that everything is just perfect. Everything. And these are a few examples. Let's go over a few examples as well. Now, one example that we can look at is the expansion rate of the universe. Now, we know that the universe is expanding, right? It's something we've observed about the universe. But if we rewind the tape of time, we see the universe getting closer and closer and closer and closer until it all comes into one point. And from this point, the universe expanded and exploded into existence. What is this called? Big Bang. Okay, so this is called the Big Bang, right? Now, during the Big Bang, when the universe exploded into existence, it did so at a very interesting speed, okay? It expanded at just the perfect rate, and this is called the cosmological constant. It dictates the expansion rate. So the universe expanded at a very specific rate. If it had expanded any faster, the universe would have thinned out too quickly, and we wouldn't have galaxies or stars or planets or even chemistry, right? So the universe expanded at a perfect rate. And if it had expanded any slower, what would have happened? It would have gone out and then come crashing back in. So we find that our universe, during the Big Bang, expanded at just the perfect rate. How perfect? Well, the chances of us getting this is 1 in 10 to the 120. Okay? Now, that's it's a small number, but if you look at the denominator, that's a huge number, right? In order to understand how big that number is, I want you all to look at your hand. And now look really closely, right? Do you see any cells? You know, we have skin cells, blood cells. Do you see any cells? Look really closely. Can you guys see anything? No. You shouldn't be able to. They're too small. The amount of cells in your body are 10 to the 14. Still not even close to this. Okay? Here's another number. How many seconds have passed since time began? How many seconds have passed since time began? The answer is 10 to the 20. We're still not even close, right? Here's another number. How many atoms, you guys know what an atom is, right?
Yeah.
How many atoms do you think are in your body? Just think. Okay?
A couple, like, quintillion or whatever.
Good guess. How many atoms do you think are on the planet? Probably a lot. How many atoms do you think are in the entire universe? Think about that.
Too many to count.
How many subatomic particles are there in the universe? I'm talking protons, neutrons. The answer is, according to science, 10 to the 80. We're still not even close to this number. So that just goes to show how unlikely it is that our universe expanded at just the perfect rate. Let's look at another example. Now, you don't need to look at astronomy. We can even look at chemistry. Oh, wait, what happened? Okay. We can even look at chemistry. Here is the proton to neutron mass ratio. Okay? Now, take for instance the neutron. That is the neutron to proton mass ratio. And if it was changed by even a little bit, the neutron wouldn't be able to decay into a proton, right? And this is a process which has dictated the abundance of hydrogen and given us a universe dominated by hydrogen. Now, if this was even different by even a little bit, one of two things would have happened. One, we would be living in a universe dominated by helium, which means that stars wouldn't burn long enough for life to exist. Or protons would decay into neutrons, meaning all of reality would collapse. Okay? So this ratio is allowing our reality to be sustained. So in fact, we wouldn't be living here at all. Nothing would exist if this ratio was different. Okay, another example. And the last example I'm going to give you guys is the distribution of mass and energy during the Big Bang. Here we have a little pie chart, right? It's not a little pie chart, but you see that there's a distribution of dark matter, atoms, photons, and all that, right? Now, if this distribution was even off by that much, can you guys see that number? 10 to the 10 to the 120. Now that's a big number. That's a huge number. To call that number astronomical would be a disgusting understatement. Okay? That number is huge. And since it's in the denominator, the whole number itself is it's zero. It's basically zero. So the chances of us getting this first try are 0. Now, according to Leonard Susskind, who's one of the founding fathers of string theory, he works at Stanford, he said, the great mystery is not why there is dark energy. The great mystery is why there is so little of it. He continues, he says, the fact that we are just on the knife edge of existence, that if dark energy were very much bigger, we wouldn't be here, that's the mystery. So you see, even a slightly larger value of dark energy would have caused space-time to expand so fast that galaxies couldn't have formed. Now these are only a few examples. of the insanely sensitive and perfectly finely tuned constants which allow us to be here today discussing this. Why isn't this working? Could you try to fix this? Okay, but anyway, so the question isn't whether there is fine-tuning. No, there is fine-tuning. The more we look at the universe, the more we find that our universe is finely tuned for human life. Okay? Now, when we look at this fine-tuning, we can't say it's just is, right? And we can't just say, future advancements in science will explain it. The fine-tuning of the universe, the fact that our universe is perfect for our existence, requires an explanation. Now, when we look at this, we have 3 options. Option number 1 is that it's necessary. Meaning, did the universe have to be this way? Like, are all the constants in our universe fixed? Well, that's a good question. Now we have to ask ourselves, is a life-prohibiting universe impossible? Well, if you look at physics, there's nothing in physics which says that things had to be this way. So, in fact, a life-prohibiting universe is much more probable. Yeah, just go two slides forward. So, no, the universe didn't have to be this way. Okay? So here we have the 3 options. It's necessary, and we can eliminate the fact that it's necessary. So it doesn't have to be necessary. The universe is actually more likely to not allow life to exist. And we saw the numbers before, right? Like, it's so improbable. Now, what's the second option? The second option is that it's a coincidence. There's no God. There's no grand plan. There's no designer. The numbers just came up and here we are. Now, let's stop and think. Is this a plausible argument? Is our existence today an accident? Is it due to chance? Is it a coincidence? Did we just get really lucky in the lottery of life? And this is what most atheists say, that, we just got really lucky. Now, imagine I came here with a dice. Okay? You guys know what a dice is, 6-sided, right? If I came in here and said, alright guys, I'm going to roll a 6. What are the chances that I'm going to roll a 6? 1 in 6. Okay. And if I came in here and I said, alright guys, I'm going to roll it, and I rolled it, you guys would be like, okay, he got lucky, right? Because the chances are not that big. Now, if I came in here and I said, I'm going to roll 2 6s, what are the chances? 1 in 36. 1 in 36. The chances compound. So it's 1 over 6 squared. Now, if I came in here and I rolled 2 6s, you guys would be like, okay, he got really, really lucky, right? Now, what if I came in here and I rolled 76s? The chances of this happening are 1 in 10 to the 55. Okay? That's the chances of me rolling 76s. Now, if you do the math, and we say every roll is about 5 seconds, and I just keep rolling, right? I'm just like, alright, every roll is 5 seconds, I'm going to keep rolling. The amount of time it would take me to roll 76s in a row, the amount of time it would take me to reach that lucky streak, right? That amount of time is 100 trillion years. Okay? So that's 100 followed by 10 trillion. That's how long it would take me to roll 76s in a row. Now, if I came in here and I rolled 76s, each of you guys would be like, okay, there's something going on. Either every side is a 6, or the dice are weighted, or, there has to be something, right? You guys wouldn't say, well, there's a chance, right? No, you wouldn't say that. You would say, I rigged the dice. I did something to increase the chances of me rolling 76s. And that means you guys are pretty logical people. Like at the beginning with the program, you guys also said, you rigged the program. And just like that, you would say, I rigged the dice. Now, when we look at things like this, we have to use the same logic when it applies to the universe. An atheist who says, it's just a coincidence that we're here, is applying an extreme double standard. An extraordinary double standard, where when it comes to anything else in life, we use this logic, but then when it comes to the universe, we just chuck it up to chance. Like, oh, it's chance. No, we can't do that. Like, the thing is, we can be ultra skeptical about anything. Like, who here has a dog? Anyone here have a dog? Or any pet in general, if you guys have a pet. Let's just go with the dog, right? Do you guys put like dog food out for your dog before you go to school? Yeah, okay. So imagine this morning you guys got up, you guys put some dog food for your dog, right? And now you're here at school. Now, imagine you go home today and the dog bowl is empty. What would your conclusion be? The dog ate the dog food. That's the conclusion. So your mind automatically takes the information and gives you the most likely explanation, right? Now, you can be ultra skeptical and you can go home, you see the empty dog bowl and you're like, actually, hold on a second. Is it conceivable that my mom ate the dog food? Yes. Therefore, or even better, is it possible that space aliens busted through the window, stole the dog food, and then hired a window repair guy? No. Why would you? Don't go there, right? You look at the data and you reach the most probable conclusion. Now, you can't even prove your own existence. We have faith in our existence. The closest thing we have is, I think, therefore I am. And even that has been attacked. So the point I'm trying to make is that everything can be subject to criticism or skepticism, but not everything should be. So everything can be subject to skepticism. Drill this into your head. Everything can be subject to skepticism, but not everything should be. When we look at the universe, and when we look at the sheer probability, I'm making an argument from probability. When we look at the probability of the universe, right, our logic should be the same. Zayd rigged the program. Zayd rigged the dice. Someone rigged the universe. We can't just say it's a coincidence, because it's not possible. It's not a coincidence, okay? So what options do we have left? The universe didn't have to be this way, and it's impossible for it to coincidentally turn out this way. So what option do we have? Well, we have what any logical person would say. Something is fishy. Something fishy is going on here. There is an extraneous variable which rigged the chances. That's what we would say about anything else. Now, what are the attributes of this variable? Right? Well, in order to influence the universe, this variable would have to be outside the bounds of the universe. Right? Let me go forward. This variable must be outside the bounds of the universe in order to influence the universe. Now, it must be sentient in order to want us to exist, right? Because it made a conscientious decision to fashion the universe in a very specific manner in order for us to exist. It must be insanely powerful in order to alter the very fabric of our reality, the charge of the electron, the conversion from hydrogen to helium. In order to change these things, the gravitational constant, in order to change our very laws of physics, it must be insanely powerful. And finally, it must be insanely knowledgeable, because it must know the repercussions of its actions, and it knows the exact values for which to set the universal conditions. Now, obviously, the Quran actually addresses this in a very beautiful manner. Allah says in the Quran, الشمس والقمر بحسبان والنجم والشجر يسجدان وَالسَّمَاءَ رَفَعَهَا وَوَضَعَ الْمِيزَانَ. He says, the sun and the moon move by precise calculation. The stars and the trees bow down in submission, and the heaven, He has elevated it and has set the balance. And I know there's some Christians here, so I have something for you guys. But the point is, when we look at the probability of our universe, we have to use the same logic. We can't say, my mom ate the dog food. We say the dog ate the dog food. We can't say, it's a coincidence, right? When it comes to anything else, we go to the most logical conclusion. And in this case, we should do the same. We should look at the probability and be like, okay, something's not right here. There had to be something which influenced the universe. Now obviously, atheists don't like this option, so they have come up with a fourth option. Okay? And to me, this seems like a very Hail Mary kind of thing, but let's just take it seriously. They have come up with something called the multiverse. Okay? Now, the multiverse is basically this. Okay, they're not stupid. They understand the absurdity of saying it's a coincidence. So what they say is, okay, let's pretend there's a machine, right? A machine. Now, they know there's no way we got this lucky on the first try. But what if we had a second try? It's still impossible. What if we had 1,000,000 tries? It's still impossible. What if we had an infinite amount of tries? Now we're getting somewhere. So what they say is, this machine pumps out universes. This is one version of the multiverse theory. They say it pumps out universes, and each one is a random generation, right? Now, if there is an infinite amount of random generations, then at least one of these must fit the criteria for a universe which permits life. And if at least one of them has the perfect conditions, that's the one we're living in. That's what they say. Now, just at face value, I want you guys just to decide in your mind. On the left, I have God. On the right side, I have the multiverse. Okay? Now, when you look at these two options, which one do you think is more scientific? Just think about it in your head for a second. Okay. Raise your hand if you think God is the more scientific option. Raise your hand if you think the multiverse is the more scientific option. Okay, so it's like almost the same. There's a few more for the multiverse. But if you actually analyze these two options, they're both epistemologically equal. Oh, that's a big word. What does that mean? Hold on. It means that if you analyze God, right? God provides an explanation for the fine-tuning argument, but it can't be empirically proven. Meaning, you can't see God, you can't hear him or touch him, right? So you can't empirically prove he exists, but he provides an explanation for the fine-tuning of our universe. And on the other side, you have the multiverse. Now, we can't smell the multiverse, we can't taste it or hear it or touch it, so we can't empirically prove the multiverse. But it also explains the fine-tuning. So both of these are equal in terms of their explanatory weight. So the atheist who believes in the multiverse is actually no better off from a faith perspective as the theist who believes in God. So that's very important to understand. They're both equally scientific if we try to go with those kind of terminology, right? The atheist who believes in the multiverse is just as faithful as the theist who believes in God. Now, let's just tolerate this for a second and see what the multiverse kind of says. You know, maybe it's an explanation. Now, even if we look at the multiverse, we find that the most probable universes are small ones with maybe one observer, right? That's the most probable universes. But we live in a vastly ordered universe with billions of other observers. So from a probabilistic standpoint, even the multiverse doesn't explain the fine-tuning of our universe. Now, furthermore, so this doesn't explain the fine-tuning of our universe. Furthermore, this machine itself requires fine-tuning. It's over. I'm sorry guys, but it's over, but I'm going to speak directly to the atheist community. I mean, this is not enough, guys. Like, we're not going to play these games anymore. Give us something which makes sense, okay? Because this is all speculation. You know, what if it's a coincidence? What if it's no? Allah says, قُلْ هَاتُوا بُرْهَانَكُمْ إِن كُنتُمْ صَادِقِينَ. Bring your evidences if you are truthful. So bring your evidences because we are waiting. Now, I had this presentation done maybe like 2 weeks ago, and I was just kind of thinking about it, like, you know, I was just kind of thinking about it, and I found something very interesting, and I want to share this with you guys. Let's look at this machine. Look at this machine. What are the attributes of this machine? It must be outside the bounds of the universe. It must be insanely powerful in order to pump out universes. It must be sentient, meaning it makes its own decisions, because if it's not, then you have to explain why it's doing what it's doing. So, what else have we heard of that is outside the bounds of the universe, insanely powerful, and sentient? God. So, you took me on a roller coaster of theories. what if this, what if that, like, but at the end of the day, we all arrived at the same conclusion. Now, whether you want to call it a machine, a computer, God, the Force, Dumbledore, or Lightning McQueen, it doesn't matter. The point is, everything goes back to the ultimate, infinite, immaterial, timeless, and all-powerful entity which created, fine-tuned, and sustains our universe, which we as Muslims know as Allah. And this is our claim. And we will stand by this claim. And if you guys have something which you think makes more sense, please bring it forward. Now the crazy thing is, this is the fine-tuning argument. It is a very powerful argument in and of itself. But the fine-tuning argument is not the only argument for God. The fine-tuning argument is a subset of a bigger argument, and that bigger argument is just a number of them. And in this series, Arguments for God, I'm going to go over the different philosophical and scientific arguments for God. Now, to be fair, what I've given you today is just an introduction. It's just a bare bone kind of structure. If you guys go home today and you guys search up fine-tuning arguments, I mean, you guys are going to find hours upon hours of material, right? And I mean, these conversations they get really complicated. Like they go into things like quantum mechanics, string theory, time. Like, it's not as simple as I'm making it seem. But the whole point of this is to give you guys an introduction. So next time you guys hear fine-tuning argument, you guys are like, oh, I know what that means because I learned it at the MSA. And in this series, I'm just going to kind of introduce these different types of arguments. Now, there is a verse from the Quran which I think summarizes everything very beautifully, and I will end on this. Allah says in Surah Rum, chapter number 30, verse number 22, that وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ خَلْقُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَاخْتِلَافُ أَلْسِنَتِكُمْ وَأَلْوَانِكُمْ إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لَآيَاتٍ لِلْعَالِمِينَ. And among His signs is the creation of the heavens and the earth, and the difference of your tongues and colors. Surely in this there are signs for the persons having knowledge. Now when we look at the data, ladies and gentlemen, when we look at the data, we use our logic and reasoning, and the necessary conclusion follows, like we would with anything else. You guys all said at the beginning that my program was rigged. You all decided that if I came in here and I rolled 76s, I was rigging it. Now when we look at the probability of our universe being a coincidence, we have to use the same reasoning. Something fishy is going on. Something rigged the chances. Something influenced it. And this is the Quranic argument. So you see, whether you think it's explanatory or not, whether you like it or not, the conclusion follows. So believing in God isn't a delusion. It's a perfectly reasonable conclusion when we look at the fingerprints on our universe. And now, I'm not forcing you. Did I force any of you guys to come here? No, right? You guys all came here. Let's not get into free will right now. It's a different discussion. But I'm not forcing you guys to come here. So what I've done is just I'm portraying the information. I'm giving you guys the evidence from science, from logic, from philosophy. And it's up to you guys. It's literally up to you guys to see, like, okay, does this make sense? Is there anything wrong with it? It's all up to you guys. I've done my job. Now you guys need to start thinking. And you can believe in the multiverse if you want to. I mean, if you want to believe in this, you can. But the thing is, right, if there is a God out there, one second. If there is a God, if there is a purpose to our life, well, I don't know about the multiverse, but I would find this God worthy of believing in. At least for me, I find it more fulfilling. And that is the Quranic argument. So just to summarize everything, we went over the constants and quantities in our universe. We looked over a few examples, and those were only a few examples. I mean, we didn't even go over the gravitational constant, the charge of the electron, the conversion from hydrogen to helium. Martin Rees, in his book, he writes that the conversion from hydrogen to helium is 0.007. If it was 0.006 or 0.008, we wouldn't be alive. So the more you look into science, the more you see examples of fine-tuning. And there are a few sources here in case you guys want to read, but the point is, the fine-tuning is here to stay. And it requires an explanation. And this is the theistic and the Quranic explanation for the fine-tuning of the universe. Now, I just want to get a show of hands. Who here learned something new today? Okay, cool. Who here is gonna go home and maybe think about this, maybe ask someone or do some research on their own? Okay, maybe, okay. If even one of you raised your hand, that would have been enough for me. Honestly, if even one of you raised your hand, that would have been enough. So it brings me great joy to see that a lot of people are benefiting. And again, to conclude, we look at the fine tuning. We look at how perfect, how on the dot perfect our universe is, and we say, this isn't a coincidence. The universe didn't have to be this way. It can't be a coincidence. This multiverse thing is just theoretical and there's no proof for it. And it also has its own problems. And we use our logic and we arrive at the conclusion, which is the one ultimate, self-sustained, immaterial, timeless, infinite, all-powerful entity, which we as Muslims know as Allah. Thank you all for coming. Assalamu alaikum.
So many bright stars like diamonds in the sky. Oh, it makes me wonder how anyone can be blind to all the signs so clear. Just open your eyes and I know without a doubt you will surely see the light.
तेरी ही दुनिया तेरी ज़मीन ये कहकशां है तू है करीम मेरे मौला सुन ले दुआ हम बेबस हैं तेरे बिना रोशन कर जहां
ऐसा जुल्म न किया करो दुख न किसी को दिया करो